Nick, are you ready to film the cottagecore opening?
Cottagecore? I thought it was hardcore! Hello, my children. Your father has brought you a new swatching video. Holo Taco just released their cottagecore collection just in time for the start of spring, featuring 6 cremes and a new topper. I'll get into it more later, but it feels like this collection isn't made for me, so this is going to be one of my more critical review videos. As you might know from watching my videos, I like my nail polish to like smack me in the face with being loud and bright, and this collection just kind of feels like a gentle whisper of spring on a cold February day. Is he? Hey,
Licking.
hey, stop. You're gonna make a giant wet spot, little boy.
Chicken licking.
I'm gonna show the swatches of each of the colors, comparisons to things in my collection, and because most of them are cremes, some kind of easy nail art to tie them all together, so let's get into that. First up, we have Wild Child. This polish is described as a muted lavender creme polish. Are you a wild child? Like I said in the past, there isn't that much to say about cremes in a review video apart from their overall coverage and formula. And because this is Holo Taco, you typically get high quality cremes, and this collection is no exception. Every polish in this collection was swatched in just 2 coats, which was really unexpected for how light these colors are. Christine really said she's bringing full coverage for spring. And I'm gonna just try something new and show you the comparisons now in the middle of the swatch. So let's see what they look like in comparison to other things in Holo Taco's lineup. The closest color is a retired shade Lavender from their 2022 Winter Shimmers collection. Wild Child, however, is more desaturated and a darker color, so not a dupe, but very similar. I also thought Perisocial might be close because it's also a light-colored purplish creme, but Perisocial is a periwinkle, which is actually a blue, hence why you'll see this one again later. I also grabbed some of my darker purples that had the same tone to show how they would compare. While Wild Child is clearly lighter, it seems like Nightshade is pretty much the same color but darker, meaning there's some nail art potential there. Spoiler alert for later. So overall, I feel like this color fits really well within Holo Taco's lineup, and I can see myself wearing this one again in the future. Next up is Nip in the Bud. Am I saying it right? Nip in the bud?
Nip it in the bud.
Like nip it in the butt?
Bud.
What's the actual phrase?
Nip it in the bud.
Wait, what? I thought the phrase was always nip in the butt.
The phrase comes from gardening when you nip off a flower bud to prevent it from growing into the flower.
I clearly know nothing about
Nip it in
gardening.
the bud.
I don't like dirt that gets underneath my nails, that's why I don't touch it. This polish is a muted rose pink creme, which I'm gonna warn you now is somehow this average mix of all of my flesh color, and I'm not a fan of it on me. Like, you can't even see where it starts and where my skin stops. It's just a flesh nail. Now this might be a perfect neutral creme for some under something like a French tip, but it's just a little too close to my skin color that it just throws me off and I'm not a fan of it. As for the comparisons, I only compared it to Lowkey Blushing, which is a more saturated and slightly darker blush pink creme. Once again, these are not dupes, but they are quite similar, and I bet Linry's partner can't see the difference. If you don't know who Linry is, she's another nail polish creator. Please check her out because she's hilarious and absolutely amazing. So overall, this one's not for me. I have enough flush already. Thank you. On to the next one. Moving on, we have Rosemary Kill, which is a very light neutral pink creme polish. I was very surprised by the coverage of this one as I was expecting needing 3 coats because it was so pale, but it held up pretty well in just 2. I could have done a 3rd coat to try to even out the edges a little bit more, but I knew I was putting a topper on it and I didn't really try that hard because I don't like this color. Sorry. As for comparisons, I first thought of my lightest pink, that being Sweet Tooth. These two are very similar, both being very light pinks, but Rosemary Kill has a slight desaturation in it that it pulls it ever so slightly more purple or mauve, I would say. So personally, I wouldn't need both because I don't care for pink polish, but if pink is your jam or you like the undertones of this one more, then there is enough of a difference between the 2 colors to justify them if that's what you want. I did also compare it to several coats of pink smoothing base as they looked similar to each other, and while they do look slightly close on the swatch stick, it could be because pink smoothing base is thin and you can see some of the yellow tone swatch stick pulling the color in a more matching direction. And one last thing I wanted to compare it to, not because it looked the same, but because it made me think of it, was Ivory Tower, the best off-white polish ever. Since these are both slightly white polishes that may be useful as a background color in nail art, and they have pretty great coverage for being so light, I wanted to show off their differences. So overall, to no one's surprise, the pink polish I don't love, but it does have probably my favorite name of any Holo Taco polish ever, so it does win some points in my book. Next up, we have Skipping Stone, which is a cool baby blue creme. And like Rosemary Kill, this one is also a pretty much off-white polish with a touch of color, and in this case, it's a touch of blue. Hence why I was also surprised by the coverage of this one, as I got it to build up in just 2 coats. As for the comparisons, I think I sometimes conflate the cremes in my head, so I was surprised by how much it stood alone in the lineup of other light blues by Holo Taco. I put it next to Bep Bep Blue from the Julian collection, which is far more saturated, but a similar vibe. Then Perry Social, which now looks too purple in comparison to the blues, so that just goes to show how great of a color Perry Social is. And finally, Too Good to Be Blue and Scientific, which are far too saturated blues to be similar. I think the closest is Bep Bep Blue, so while it's not a dupe at all, it's maybe a distant cousin. So overall, I like this polish, but I don't think I'm going to turn to it that often. I think I'll probably end up using it if I ever need to make cloud nail art, because that desaturated blue will work really well for that. But if I'm ever going to wear a light blue polish, I'm probably going to turn to something more vibrant in my collection instead. And next up is Time After Time. Copyright.
Thyme after thyme.
This polish is a cool sage green creme that blew me away with its coverage. I swear this was almost a 1-coater, which I thought would be impossible for how light and desaturated this color is. But Christine really said, I'm gonna give you a green that you're not gonna be able to hate. I personally really love a sage green polish, my favorite being Sagebrush by Mooncat, but I am a little confused by the existence of this one, which I'll get to in a second. First up, I put Time After Time next to my other light greens, and spoiler alert for the last one. I think the closest is Matcha Maker, as Time After Time is slightly more blue leaning and more desaturated. Crime and Punishment is clearly a minty green color, and Seafoam Home pulls way too blue. I did also include the next color in this collection to show that it is distinctly different from the other green that was included, which I'll get into more later. But first, this polish does beg the question, did Matcha Maker have to be discontinued in order for this polish to exist, because they're so similar? Like in my spotlight, Time After Time and Matcha Maker do look distinctly different, but in the yellowy lighting that I was writing this script in now, they do look pretty much the same. But I'm worked up because Matcha Maker is really special to me, because this was one of the first polishes that I felt physical pain when it was announced that it was getting discontinued. But that's also why I'm just confused by the existence of this polish, as Christine has never been shy about sharing how much Holo Taco customers refuse to buy green polish, so I'm really confused why something really similar to a color that got discontinued presumably due to lack of sales is being released now. In fact, this is one of 2 green polishes in this collection, just kind of confusing me a little further. At the end of the day, I'm really happy that there is a replacement for Matcha Maker, and I hope y'all don't sleep on this one too and get it discontinued. And for the last creme, we have Touch Grass. Simply really said, y'all need more nature in your life for this collection. This is the second green creme in this collection, and it's cooler toned, darker, and slightly more saturated, but still has that same desaturated vibe that the rest of the polishes in this collection have. And y'all, this is my favorite one in the collection. Not only is it because this one was pretty much a 1-coater, I did do 2 coats just to be safe, but it really stands alone in my collection, and I have nothing else like it. As you can see, none of the colors I have to compare to this are anywhere similar. Every shade is too saturated or too dark. I would say the closest is Modest Moss if you took Touch Grass and made it darker and even more saturated, so essentially made it an entirely different color. So as I said, this is my favorite polish from the collection because it's just so different from anything else that I have, and this is the one that I'm going to wear the first moment I can in between swatching videos, but I just want to add some like gold shimmery shifty stuff over it too. And last up, we have Garden Party Taco shown over every color in the collection. This topper is filled with scattered hollow, reflective glitters, and large flower-shaped glitters. And one of the problems with large glitter polishes like this is you're probably not going to be able to pick up that many large glitters on the brush when you put it on your nail, thus not really making the effect that you would expect to happen just by looking at the bottle. For example, while painting these swatches, I pretty much averaged like 1 flower per nail with just 1 swipe of the brush. So during your initial application, you're just gonna get the smaller glitters, that being the reflective glitters and the hollow, and maybe pick up a flower or 2. And you may think that doing more coats would make it more successful, but because the glitters don't really make their way onto the brush, that's not going to help, and I would actually recommend using something else entirely. If you paint a polish like this onto something porous like a makeup sponge, it'll suck away all the polish and leave the glitters on their own that you can just manually pick up with something like a nail art brush or maybe a toothpick will do and place them directly onto the nail. And while it does seem a little tedious, you're not going to ever be able to get the covered by floral petals look like you see in the bottle just by swiping it alone. And another tip, if you have curved nails like myself, you might need an extra top coat in order to smooth them down on the nail. Since they are quite large, they lie flat and don't actually conform to the shape of the nail, so the edges might stick out a little, which you can fix with some extra top coat. As for the comparisons, this is the first of its kind by Holo Taco, so I painted it over black and white so you can see how it will look over other colors. Personally, I think this looks the best over black because the floral glitters are essentially white, which also begs the question of why was this the topper that came with the pastel creme launch, as I think it would have been more impactful over more saturated colors. The closest thing I compared it to is Disco Dust Taco because they both have a pink hue to them. Disco Dust Taco is pink because the pink reflective glitters take over, but I'm not sure why Garden Party is pink, as I don't believe the reflective glitters are pink themselves. It just looks super pink in the bottle. They may appear pink at more extreme angles, but when activated by the phone flash, they really just appear white. And here's the whole collection with Garden Party Taco over it.
Hi, Titan.
Overall, I'm honestly really surprised to see this topper from Holo Taco. Not because I didn't know it was coming, I think this was teased during a recent Holo royalty survey, but because this just isn't the kind of topper that I associate with Holo Taco. Now, you may love this, and I'm not here to ick your yum, but this polish kind of gives me Claire's circa 2004, and it's really not something that I think I'm ever going to reach for again. But don't get me wrong, I'm really happy to see a topper from Holo Taco because that is one of my favorite things about the brand. I personally love being able to mix layers and make my own custom manicure every time, and it feels like Holo Taco has moved away from that in recent years in favor of polishes that could be worn alone. I'm not sure if this is a new direction for Holo Taco or if this is a push to compete with more mainstream brands because the typical nail polish consumer values convenience a little bit more over playing with the polish. And I hope that by us seeing this topper is a sign that Holo Taco is balancing their mainstream success like being stocked at Ulta with also trying to give things back to the fans who really just love playing with nail polish. Regardless, let me know in the comments below what you think of this collection. As I said, I don't really love these, but I'm gonna try to make a nail art out of them anyways. So I used what I already swatched in order to make a simple nail art that is partially inspired by one of the nail arts on my Sims manicure that I posted recently. Check it out if you haven't seen it already, or check it out again because I put a lot of love into that video and I'm really proud of it. Enough shameless plugs, let's get into the super easy nail art. I wanted to pair each color with a more saturated version and make a flower petal manicure. Check out the description below to see what I paired with what, but you can use another color from the comparisons if you like that vibe more. To paint this, I used the brush itself to paint two diagonal lines crossing over each other near the tip of the nail. Holo Taco's brushes are rounded enough that this works without any special nail art tools. Your goal is to make it look like the two bumps at the top of the heart are at the tip of your nail. And if you practice this enough, you can make this shape in just the first two swipes, but feel free to go in a little bit more to even out some of the curves. One thing to note is I did also have to take off some of the polish that was on the brush or the nail because you want to have less polish than you would normally use because you're only painting a fraction of the nail. And finally, don't forget to wrap the tip. And here's the full floral heart nail art. This technique can work for either something Valentine's themed or something vaguely floral themed because I realized that this video is coming out the day after Valentine's Day and I painted a Valentine's nail art anyways. Oops. Anyways, if I was going to really nail down the floral theme, I would have added some bright color at the tip of the nail to look like the center of the flower. All in all though, I don't really love this nail art, not because it's not good, I stand by this nail art, I just don't love it on me since it's not my typical vibe. I was actually considering making another nail art after this, more in my style, but as I was brainstorming, I was picking less and less colors from this collection, and it was really just featuring everything else more, so it kind of just shows how much this collection really isn't for me. I think that the overall color palette, that being super desaturated pastels for spring, is just a really neat idea that I really enjoy, but as individual shades, most of them are just not something that I'm going to turn to, with an exception of a few of them, so overall, I'm not really in love with this collection. honestly, if I wasn't reviewing this collection or received this as PR, I wouldn't have bought it. I probably would have only bought the 2 greens and maybe the purple. I do want to say, unlike the Underglow collection, which was also not for me, I think that this one is a little bit more versatile as it does have greater opacity and can be used in nail art. So I am ultimately happy to see these colors added to Holo Taco's lineup. It does kind of feel like Holo Taco has been going into the same color story, that being this slightly light pink, this slightly light blue, this slightly light purple, that we've seen before in the Underglow collection, this one, sometimes the Holo Royalty, and whether that's Christine listening to her fans or appealing what she thinks more people are going to like, it's just less and less what I love. And so I was really happy when we got to see the Declassified bundle because that was really for me, that and Birthstone. But I just hope we see more things like that in the future, and not this. I mean, it's here. I'm still happy it exists. And at the end of the day, I know someone is living for this collection, so I'm not going to give any hate, any negativity, anything negative is not tolerated in my comments. Someone is going to love this, that person's just not me, and I'm okay with that. Anyways, don't forget to like and subscribe down below if you want to see more swatching or nail art content in the future, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye. That's why I have bangs. I got bangs.